Welcome back, my friends, to AA Recovery Interviews. I'm your host, Howard L., and I'm an alcoholic. Sober since January 1st, 1988, one day at a time. I'm grateful you've joined us. AA Recovery Interviews is the podcast where Alcoholics Anonymous members from around the world share their timeless and extraordinary stories of experience, strength, and hope. There are hundreds of awesome interviews in the AA Recovery Interviews podcast series. Listen to every hour-long episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also listen at aarecoveryinterviews.com. Each story is a powerful testimony of the recovery available in AA to all who want it. Today is an encore episode of my interview with Ksenija P., originally released March 23, 2022. Ksenija has been a sober member of AA since February 1992. For this, the 70th interview in my AA Recovery Interviews podcast series, I'm thrilled to welcome Ksenija P., a remarkable woman whose AA service work in her home country of Croatia is beyond compare. Though she grew up in a Soviet country that paid little heed to the disease of alcoholism, the rest of Ksenija's backstory is similar to those told by AA members in the U.S. She was raised in a culture in which alcohol is part of the social fabric and started drinking in her middle teens. Finding enjoyment in the bottle and the behavior that resulted from it, Ksenija lived through her share of abusive relationships, tough marriages, single mothering, and divorce, many of the same things encountered by other AA women I've interviewed. Like other ambitious and functional alcoholics, Ksenija still managed to carve out a successful career as a singer and actress in her native Croatia, the U.S., and other countries. Unfortunately, though inevitably, the disease of alcoholism interceded, prevailed, and destroyed it all. Barely surviving her bottom, Ksenija was providentially led into the AA program and reliable sobriety. That was 30 years and many achievements ago. But it was her unique abilities associated with service work that put a shine on Ksenija's program. She actively lobbied for and later volunteered to translate the Big Book and the 12 and 12 into the Croatian language. Such tools were simply not available to the fledgling groups in Croatia, especially before the fall of the Soviet Union. The books completed and her career restored, Ksenija made it her service mission to travel her country, helping establish and support new and existing AA groups. To say that her service work has kept her sober, humble, and grateful would be an understatement. There are many Croatians who have been guided to sobriety by her effort. You're going to enjoy my interview with Ksenija. I do beg you to forgive the glitchy audio that Zoom's connection to Croatia provided that day. But it's still the content that counts, and hers counts a lot. So please welcome to AA Recovery Interviews my friend and AA sister, Ksenija P.
I am Ksenija. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Hi, Ksenija. Thanks so much for being with me here today on AA Recovery Interviews. And this is a real special opportunity for me to get to know a woman who I first met at a meeting that takes place out of California. And I've enjoyed hearing what you've had to say in that meeting over the couple of years that we've been participating on Zoom. And I said, I just need to know more about this person, especially when I heard that you're actually in Croatia and you have been involved in a lot of service in Croatia that just impressed the heck out of me. And I just want to thank you for being on this podcast today. Tell me how long you've been sober and what your sobriety date is.
My sobriety day is 2/2/92. 30 years of sobriety this month.
Congratulations on that. Do you get a medallion or a chip in your home country?
I know one of my sponsees managed to get that medallion from a friend from Slovenia. They brought it from Slovenia and gave it to me.
How wonderful. I know you've got an extraordinary story. So if we could go ahead and kind of start at the beginning.
I grew up in Croatia and in Dalmatia, both in Split and in Rijeka. With my grandparents, I spent quite a lot of time when I was very young, and I was the second child. And once I was 6 years old, I distinctly remember, and I went in a storage where there was a huge barrel with wine, and the wine was the red wine. And I came to that barrel, and it was a faucet actually on the barrel. Faucet, like it's for the water. So I poured the wine in a glass, and they were looking at me, and I was 6 years old. I said, what you looking at me? I just ate figs. You know that you cannot drink water after figs. You got to drink something. I'm thirsty, so I'm not drinking water because you told me I'm going to get diarrhea. So, so the people were watching 6-year-old. Anyway, then I was 10 or 11. My father was a sea captain, and it was in Slovenia, in Koper, and then it was New Year, and they gave me just 2 sips of champagne. And I swear to God, when I tried that one, I thought I went to heaven. I was waiting the whole year for the new year to have another 2-3 sips of champagne that they were giving us.
So between 6 and 10, you were drinking wine?
No, never. Water, lemonade, whatever, nothing. But just for New Year, they gave me 2 sips. I was like 10, 11. 2 sips of, and I thought I went absolutely to heaven. Then next year for New Year, again, they gave me a few sips of champagne. Oh, God, heaven. Then I was 14, and my dad brought red wine, very heavy red sweet wine called Malaga from Spain. And I remember taking the bottle in my room, and I remember drinking the whole bottle, and the table in front of me was going like, it was like a waves. I was completely drunk, and I wrote a poem. By that time, I was writing poems, I was dancing, I was acting, I was singing. I was just obsessed with being a performer.
Right.
And at that time, with that bottle of wine, I wrote a drunken poem, which is like a big surprise. It was quite a good poem. Everybody praised me. And of course, I attributed that success to the wine I drank. I continued secretly asking mom for a glass of wine or something. I was 14, 15.
So you didn't have to sneak it? You could actually just ask your mom for it?
No, it was Croatia. It's mom or grandpa sneak in. And then I was 15 and a half. I had the boyfriend, 16. And then, my father was a sea captain. So my mom was with 2 girls, and she didn't realize that at 15 and a half, I got into incredibly abusive relationship. I got a really abusive boyfriend, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. I was basically raped and brainwashed almost every day of my life that I was no good, that I was a fallen woman because I'm sleeping with somebody out of the marriage, that I'm not good, that I'm stupid. If I become an actress, I will be a whore. I was every day hit, beaten, whatever. And the sex was to me as interesting as eating glass. So that was my first thing. At that time, when I was with this abusive boyfriend, my mother didn't know that. I was scared to death to say anything about that person because he threatened me. He threatened my life. He threatened my parents. He threatened my sister. I was living in fear. When you're 15 and a half, 16, then you believe that that's what relationships are. I would go in his house, and then I would have a dinner with his sister and mom and dad. And by the way, his dad was also abusing with his mother, beating her and so on. Anyway, so it was like a normal thing. It's not like my parents never raised voice. They knew nothing what was going on with me. And then I started having a glass of wine or 2 glasses. I realized when I have 2 glasses of wine, then I can survive that horrendous sex situation later on a little bit easier. Then it was more and more, but I was a very good student. But at that time, the abuse got so intense that I was basically losing my mind because I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to go to Academy of Dramatic Arts. And he stopped me when I was 18. He virtually stopped me physically. I was afraid for my life. And then I started drinking really, because when I was drinking, I was very brave. And I would tell him that I hate him and I'm going to leave him. And the alcohol and this abuse went hand in hand. And my alcohol intake escalated. And then finally I was 20 and I decided, dead or alive, I'm going to go to Academy of Dramatic Arts to preliminary exam. And I passed. There were 220 people. There were 4 girls accepted. And I was very happy and proud. And he came with a gun to shoot me. And I told him that he can kill me, but I'm not going to go back to him. And my mother finally called the police. I was 21 by that time.
Were you actually married to him at this point, or?
No, I was not living with him. I was my boyfriend. I was in prison. He picked me up 7:15, took me to school at 8, picked me up at 1:15, and came back to pick me up at 6 p.m. and bring me back by 9 o'clock when I had the curfew. I was a good girl.
A good girl in a bad situation, right?
Yeah, it was forbidden for me to go by myself to town, for 3 years. He was, to me, really, I was completely abused. I did not understand that that's not what relationships should look like.
Did you have anybody to talk to about it?
Oh, I was scared to death. He threatened me, and I had to say to everybody, I love him. He's my boyfriend. I never talked to men. He forbid me to be with my girlfriends. He stopped me from seeing anybody, and I was isolated. So finally, when I came to Academy of Dramatic Arts, all that abuse and brainwashing that I'm no good came to haunt me. And I was very attractive young lady, and men were just obsessing to be with me. I had no clue what is love. I had no clue what is relationship. And then I was 22 and I fell in love for the first time. And that person was an alcoholic, of course. I fell in love with an alcoholic. By that time, I was real full-blown alcoholic. I was very good and my work in a theater. But there were so many opportunities that I was blowing away because I was drinking, and I started working National Theater, became a young star, but my drinking escalated. I thought, I have made it. And by the age of 22, I decided that I'm not going to be with my great love, that I'm going to leave him. And the first guy that came along, I got married as a revenge to the one that I really loved. A real alcoholic move. Nobody told me that if you don't want to kiss somebody and you don't want to sleep with him, it's really not wise to get married to that person. But
what happened to boyfriend number one?
He stayed in a different town. The Yugoslavian police probably beat him up very well, and or whatever they did with him, threatened him. He's gonna be without kidneys next time he approaches me. He never approached me again. The first boyfriend got married to another lady. The next 30 years, he absolutely tortured her, and the whole town knew that. So it's just like I escaped that. I got married to somebody I didn't love, and I was married. I had a beautiful little baby girl.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 23 when I got married, and then I had my daughter, and I was 25 when I told my husband, who was also an alcoholic. I told him after being together like 4 years, I don't like you. I don't love you. I never loved you. I will never love you. I cannot love you. I tried everything, but I cannot forget my first boyfriend. I'm still in love with him. I think about him 24 hours a day. The guy looked at me and, only an alcoholic woman can say things like, why did you marry me? I said, I thought I was going to forget about him. Why did you have a baby? I said, I don't know. It happened. I thought the best. It just doesn't, this marriage is not working. I was 25 and a half years old. I was as crazy as Looney Bean,
Yeah, and you had a little child at the time?
A child, 2.5 years old. We divorced, and the most ugly divorce. We didn't have shared custody, but I never forbid him to see the kid. As my career was in spite of my alcoholism, I was very young, so it was really flourishing and everything.
Were you drinking all the time?
Yeah, I was drinking all the time. I will make like an attempt to stop drinking for a while. I will make an attempt maybe not to drink, but it will last for a short period of time. Every time I would drink, I would feel like a Kodak moment, a Zen. I have arrived exactly there where I always wanted to be. Somebody told me, Ksenija, maybe you're an alcoholic if you are like me. When you drink, you just arrive exactly where you always wanted to be. So that was my problem. I thought with the alcohol, I was brave, I was talented, I was smart, I was everything funny. That's what I thought.
What did you think when your friend told you she thought you were an alcoholic?
At early ages, people didn't tell me because I was hiding very well. 2-3 glasses, but that would change my personality. I would be aggressive, would tell everybody I'm that great actress, I'm a great singer. Start singing. When I was drinking, I would just sing, people love it.
Do you think it made it more difficult later on? I mean, I've interviewed people before that the hardest part about stopping drinking was they were so successful while they were drinking. They didn't seem to feel like there was a connection between the problems in their life and the alcohol. Did you get the sense that because you were so successful, you couldn't possibly be an alcoholic?
Yeah. I thought, how can I be? I'm not an alcoholic. I'm taking care of my kids. I'm taking care of myself. I live in this beautiful part of town. I never embarrassed myself anyway, get drunk. Like, mainly I was drinking solo drinker, like I would hide my drinking. And then, my career was very successful at that time. I was like full of myself. And I thought that especially my singing is completely dependent on the alcohol because it gave me so much courage. So I got divorced. And then 5 years later, I was shooting a movie, a co-production with United States. I madly fell in love with John. I madly fell in love with him, and he madly fell in love with me. Oh my God. At that time, I really controlled myself. I would drink 2 glasses of wine and try to behave myself. Because I was not a fallen drunk at that time. I was just incredibly hurt, abused person.
How old were you at that point?
31.
So you were at the peak of your career at that time with singing and acting and...
Yeah. I was that year. I got parts in families. We got engaged in Venice, and we took my kid. Her father was not crazy about it, but he was a drunk and he was making scenes. So I thought in my heart it's the best that my daughter lives a normal life, which I wanted for her, a normal family life in the United States. And we took off. We got married in Tokyo, and we went to New York to celebrate our marriage. It was all days of wine and roses, champagne. I was drinking more and more, and then it was hard to hide. Alcohol was my drug of choice. After 5 months of my marriage, my husband smoked a first joint of marijuana and probably took some cocaine. And I never, ever saw a person that I got married to again. He turned into a terrible drug addict. And I started drinking more and more. I was just out of my mind. He was just a pothead, like just a pothead. Pothead from morning to evening. I couldn't stand it. He was absent, and so was I. Even with a small amount of alcohol, I would turn into maniac. Because I was upset, because I saw the truth. And then he couldn't take my obsessive behavior. He thought I was crazy, so he left me and the child. That was the worst point of my alcoholic drinking. And he told me that I can go and live with my daughter anywhere I want to. That evening, my drinking was amazing. So it was the worst moment of my life.
Had he asked you to stop drinking, Ksenija?
No, I was not drinking in front of him excessively. I was just behaving like a mad woman. I would have 2-3 glasses and I would go out of my mind.
Your behavior was getting in the way.
Yeah, I'm really allergic to alcohol. So he left, my daughter's 7.5, and my husband sent me a letter where he is telling me that he cannot take this abuse anymore, that I'm talking horrible things that I'm, paranoid about, and that he cannot take this anymore, and that he will support me wherever I want to go.
But you said that was the worst part of your life to that point.
I will say one thing. When I read that, I loved that man. Unfortunately, he was probably one of the really, I'm reluctant to say, but I never loved anybody like I loved my husband. And when I read that letter, I fell on the floor, and I was out of my mind of pain, emotional pain. I drank the whole bottle of sherry brandy, and completely drunk, I smashed the bottle. I was laying on the floor, and I slashed my wrist with my 7-year-old. I'm in the house, and I slashed my wrist, and I looked at the sky, and I asked God, please help me. Why? Please help me. And at that time, I felt that I slashed my wrist twice, but I slashed it the wrong way. I didn't know how to do it. I slashed it horizontally.
Oh my!
And then I there was a ground, like a force underneath me, like pulled me. Something pulled me. As I said, God, help me. I don't remember if I was calling Jesus or Mary, but I know God. I was calling God. And then, and I stood up, and I called, I want to live. And then I fell downstairs, these wooden stairs. I fell, and I hurt myself really bad. And then they put some antibiotic on my wound, and they took care of me. And the next day, he told me I have to leave. I decided to go to Los Angeles with my daughter. Where else is a normal actress going but to LA, where I can work? And then the next day, that evening, when I came to the hotel, there was a doctor that came, thank God, and gave me antibiotics and helped me. And the next morning, when I was about to go on a flight, my husband showed up, and he came back.
When you were lying there and looking up at the sky, you're out in the outdoors there, and you tried to slash your wrists, and you asked God to help you.
Yeah.
What was that a spiritual moment for you? Did you get the sense that God was going to help you?
Yeah. Somebody pushed me. Somebody lifted me up. I couldn't do it by myself. It was like I was light like a feather. I stood up like a feather. It was I distinctly remember the biggest pain, the top of my horrendous alcoholic, emotional, mental pain. All the abuse and all the pain came to me, and I really didn't want to live. So I at that time, I didn't remember my daughter. I didn't remember anything. I was just with a bottle of sherry brandy, but I was very spiritual moment. And then the next few days, I suffered. I think I had nervous breakdown. And my husband came back, and we went to Hawaii, and we stayed there, and he was in heaven because he had his marijuana, Maui Waui.
Had you stopped drinking by this point?
Oh no.
No. So you have this spiritual experience.
Yeah, I had a spiritual.
You asked God to help.
Yeah, but emotionally, I was out of my mind. And the only thing that could help me was just, I didn't drink much. I was drinking like a little bit of beer. I didn't get drunk, but I was so insane. I didn't take any pills to calm down, nothing. And I met some Russian descendants, and I started drinking with them champagne, but not excessively. I would go and then come back, I was not like a full-on drunk, how to say.
Yeah.
To me, it was enough. My problem was the first step. We are unable to control your life. The things that are had 2 marriages broken, two careers destroyed. I destroyed my career in Hollywood.
Did anybody at this point, Ksenija, were any of the people who were close to you, either family or anybody else, did they suggest to you that you should really, really stop?
No, in Croatia, my grandmother looked at me and said, "No, don't pour the 3rd glass, but I will do it anyway." My parents nobody. The only person I got really drunk was that love of my life, the first love of my life, who I was in a relationship for 9 years. We will see each other and be intimate, whatever. And the last time I came in, completely drunk, and he said, "Ksenija, you are one of the people that should not drink. You are terribly allergic. After 2-3 glasses of wine, you are impossible to live with." And then it escalated.
But you didn't believe that, did you?
Yeah, and I tried to do it on my own, and I couldn't. I would stop for a few months. Then I was married to John, and I would stop, and I would swear to God that I would not. Like in 1990, I stopped from 9 months, first 4 months, then 1 month, then 3 months. I stopped.
On sheer will?
On sheer will. White knuckling, No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Yeah.
Did you ever along the way draw the connection between some of these horrendous things that were going on in your life and the fact that you were continuing to drink before, during, and after them?
Yeah and no.
What do you mean?
Yes, I would not connect them. I would just say I was not lucky, I thought that alcohol was helping. Definitely, I cannot sing without alcohol, that's for sure. And sex, whatever shit. But the thing is that I never blamed alcohol for things that were happening in my life. Then when I came to Hollywood, I started working very soon. I had a small part in A movies, then I did some concert. And I thought, oh man, I'm climbing. And, on a rap party of A movie that I was part of, I got so drunk. I did everything wrong that you can do. I just blew it at the very beginning. When they see that you're crazy, they don't care. They write you off. So, and I didn't know that was happening.
So you were functioning all right, drinking the way you were drinking?
No, at that time, I came to Hollywood 1987, 88, 9.
Yeah.
At that time, I was already, I was an alcoholic. It's not 2, 3, 5, 10 glasses of wine. I was sitting in the Dantana and talk to the famous people, and I thought I made it. I'm just around the corner, whatever. Obsessed with the fame, obsessed with bullshit. And then in 90, I decided to divorce John. By that time, I already have gone my merry way. I was going out. I had a very good girlfriend that was helping me break my marriage. But
you're still drinking?
Yeah. I was still drinking. Marriage was falling apart.
We were talking about you're getting divorced. You're 1992. You're drinking more than ever. I wanted to ask you a question, though, regarding that 9 months that you stopped. First of all, why did you stop?
Because I knew in Paris in 1983, I knew in my heart, for the first time, I admitted to my then boyfriend. I told him, I have to admit that I'm thinking all day long about this bottle of Beaujolais. I did admit in 1983. I tried on my own so painfully to stop many, many, many times. But in Hollywood, when I came in Hollywood, it was so connected, this alcohol, with my professional success, this drunken insanity. And then what happened in my life was war in Croatia. And that woke me up. And
what year was that?
1991. And during that time, I just so painfully tried to stop on my own, and it wouldn't work. And it wouldn't work. And I have major success in the theater, movies, and wherever I went, I had wonderful response. I really was very happy working, but the alcohol cannot stop. And then a friend of mine, I don't know who, he told me, it'll be nice, Ksenija, if you want to be an actress and a singer, you should really live, more dedicated to that. No more booze, no more going around. And I said, oh, you're so stupid. You don't know what you're saying, and I said, would you just promise me to go one meeting? I said, okay, I'll go. So I went to the meeting with my friend, Don, and Clancy was speaking.
Oh, in your first meeting, Clancy was speaking?
Yeah. And I said to Don after the meeting, I said, Don, you are so right. This alcohol is so dangerous. I am so glad it didn't happen to me. I never saw a doctor. I never went to hospital. I never saw anybody. I love to drink, but now that I see what kind of stories people say, from now on, after lunch or dinner, 1 glass, maximum 2.
What did he say to that?
You are so right. Good for you.
He didn't tell you that you had to stop, huh?
No, don't that. Yeah, that's a good plan. Why don't you try some controlled drinking? So at that time, I was engaged, and we came to Boston. Everybody was there. All the family gathered together. It was Shabbat dinner with everything. And I knew I cannot drink more than 2 glasses of wine. And then the worst thing happened. They have a wine cellar right next to the kitchen with millions of bottles of gorgeous wine. I was shaking. Wait for this 5 days to finish and come home and really relax in my home. And let me tell you, my drinking when I came back to Los Angeles, it was like mad Japanese train with no brakes. That's how I felt for next 2 months. At the end of January, it was my daughter's birthday, 25th of January. And I swear to God that I was not going to drink again. And when I woke up at 26 in the morning and I was hungover, it was just so incredibly, I was so helpless. And I continued to drink for the next 6 days. And then on the first, I think in the evening, my friend Mark came. And he looked at me and I was painting the furniture black. Actually, I want to say one thing so everybody knows my experience. We are going to Roberta Flack concert and I ordered juice. It was 1 day before my last day of drinking. I was able to control my drinking with 1 or 2 drinks. And the next day, in the morning, I started drinking the rest of the bottle of whiskey. And by the end of the day, I was finished with the whiskey and 2 liters of oranges because it's good for you. Mark came and said, you're drunk. And I said, I might be drunk, but you are so-and-so. And I spit on him and I pulled his hair. And I attacked him, really attacked him physically. And I wanted to hit him. I missed, and I slipped on my carpet in my living room. I hit my head against the wooden floor like a watermelon. I still hear that sound 30 years later. And that was the moment when I realized, Ksenija, these things do not happen to normal people. You are an alcoholic. If this was cement, you would be dead.
Were you knocked out or were you just stunned by that hitting of your head?
I was just stunned. I was not knocked out. I just was aware. I heard the sound as if I'm hearing it today. I know I'm an alcoholic. I can prove it. I never saw a doctor. I never went to psychiatrist. I never went to hospital. Thank you, God. Never to rehab. Nowhere. Just AA saved my life. I had a lump on my back for 2 months. And then that day I said in the morning when I woke up, I said, yes, I know. And Mark said, you have a problem. I said, yes, I'm an alcoholic and I have a problem and I'm going to ask for help. And I came to the meetings. I was crying. And I said, please help me. I don't know what's happening with me. I'll never forget. It was a small meeting and it was so, I felt like I was home. I was home and they all comforted me. And then shortly after that, I started going. And it was the first time when I really knew I belonged. Although for a long time, I was thinking, man, I didn't drink that much. Look at this. They were using all these alcohol. I was never like that, But try to slash your wrist, and try to kill yourself and hitting your head against. So I came over there and I was like I was very shortly, I belonged. I was depressed out of my mind. I couldn't act. I couldn't do anything.
We'll be right back. My friends, if you're enjoying AA recovery interviews, I invite you to check out my latest audiobook, Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how more than 100 men have recovered from alcoholism. This is the word-for-word, cover-to-cover reading of the first edition of the Big Book, published in 1939. It's a relaxing yet meaningful and engaging way to listen to the Big Book anytime, any place. Have a free listen at Audible, iTunes, or Amazon. While you're there, search for my other audiobook, Lost Stories of the Big Book, 30 original stories from the first and or second editions missing from the third and fourth editions of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an engaging audiobook that brings these stories to life for AA members who've never seen them. These timeless testimonials were originally cut to make room for newer stories in the third and fourth editions. But their vitally important messages of hope are as meaningful today as they were when they were first published. Many listeners will hear these stories for the very first time. It's also available from Amazon as a Kindle book or in paperback if you'd like to read along. You're going to love it. And we're back. So here you are, a woman who had to drink to be able to perform, to sing, to act, to do all these other things, and now you can't drink. So the thinking is, I can't do those things anymore?
So that means that I was going to be nothing. At that time, I had good alimony. I could live off that. I'm going to the meetings, and I'm afraid to go for readings. And then finally, I got a part in a theater, a lead part, and I was playing an old woman. And I said, Jesus Christ, how am I ever going to play that older woman? And I remember it was Audi Theater. I was coming out and I looked at black hole. The theater was packed. I said to myself, oh, if you only had 1 or 2 drinks. I was like 9 months sober. If you only have a few drinks, you would be so good. But with no drinks, look at this. You're going to come out. You're not going to be funny. You're not going to be anything. It's all going to be nothing. It was my first performance. It was in September and I got sober in February. Yeah. Anyway, about 8 months sober. So I come on the stage as a mother-in-law and I start talking. And I saw the audience laughing like never in my life. I saw the connection. I saw it was amazing. I said, Jesus Christ, what's going on? Why are they laughing? Like, why are they laughing? Laughing like crazy maniacs. I was a star. And the critic, somebody wrote, Ksenija's mother-in-law steals the show. And that was the beginning. And then my career really was going very well. But at that time, I found out that Croatia has no AA, that Croatia has no AA books. And then I found out why in the world I ever graduated University of Economy and Science, Department of Languages. I was certified correspondent of foreign languages.
Mm-hmm.
I translated chapter 5. I sent it to New York, and I said, if you can give me the honor to translate the big book in Croatian, my sister is going to help me to be New Croatian. It was 1994, I think. They loved my translation, and they allowed me. And then my sister, who is a teacher of English and German in Croatia and knows very well the New Croatian language, helped me translate the big book. Then I myself translated 12 and 12. I went in Croatia in 1992. After 9 months of sobriety, it was the war. I went to Croatia. It was war, 92. Nobody was there of AA. I couldn't find anybody. They told me there is a priest in Croatia who knows of AA in Zagreb. I couldn't find him. Then 4 years later, I went back to Croatia in 1996 when war was over. And then they told me that the priest who was familiar with AA went to Slovenia and took vow of silence.
Oh, no. Was he sober?
And by the way, at that time, I somehow didn't connect yet with the English-speaking group in Croatia that was already there from some Americans that were living in Zagreb. In 97, I found out there is a doctor who knows of AA. I found the American group. And by that time, in 1997, I think New York printed a big book in Croatian. I took the book in 1998. The first meeting in Croatian language, there were 4 of us, and that meeting in Osijek started 4th of October 1998. Was the first Croatian meeting in Croatia with big book in Croatian.
Wow, how marvelous to be at the very first meeting in a country. What did you do in your early years of AA to prepare you to be of such service? Did you get a sponsor right away? Did you work the steps? What solidified your sobriety early on such that you could get in there and translate the book and do all that other good service
The
work?
first 2 years, I was very lucky to connect with the winners. I really with Victoria and Wes. And the most, there was Mr. Mel, who was my sponsor. There was another woman, Randy. I immediately have a sponsor. And then when they were talking about the steps and traditions, to me it was like Chinese. I did not know what they were talking about. It was so boring. But I did it anyway. Then, after 2 years with Mr. Mel, who was trying to help me, he was a man 30 years older than me. He was kind and loving and sweet. Probably father I never had, very protective. And he said to me one day, I'm going to take you to Claire S. And Claire is still alive. It's a circuit. Claire had about 30 women, and nobody ever went out as much as I know. My sisters, and I probably am the youngest. Claire was an angel, a light of my life. I loved her more than anything in the world. I adored her. She taught me how to be a mother. She taught me how to, and everybody was successful who was, there. And we did book study. There was one guy I really liked, and to impress him, I started doing GSO. Just like I connected with New York somehow, and I slowly but surely I understood that the grace of me translating Big Book and 12 and 12 is bigger than anything I did in my life, and that I was not born in Croatia by chance. I have to go to Croatia for substantial amount of time to carry the message. It's not like you can come, hey, here's the book, carry the message.
Yeah.
And God thought that in Croatia, for me in Osijek, should be the most amazing member of AA called Taryn. Most wonderful person, just like a epitome of 12 steps, just something gorgeous. He was having meetings with the group before, but he only spoke English. Terence was the one who started in Osijek meetings in the north of Croatia. And if I wanted to go from Split to Osijek, I would go 14 hours by train. I come over there and have a meeting, spend 2 days with the boys and the girls, and then come back. Within a year, he had 100 members of AA, mainly sober. He helped, so he was one in the world. And I started in Croatia in Split. About 2-3 months later, I got my first sponsee. And
in Croatia?
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Boy, I spoiled her rottenly. When she called me one day, 20 times she called me, "Oh, I have a toothache." And I said, "Why don't you call a dentist? Why are you calling me?" So, and then it was the second girl that came in July. One came in April. And then her sobriety day was in June, the other in July. The third one came in December. And I can proudly say that the three first girls are celebrating this year 23 years of sobriety, all three of them.
Congratulations on that. And kept you sober.
Kept me very sober. Then we started a meeting, and then I was going to Osijek, to Zagreb. The American group, English-speaking group in Zagreb was just amazing. Then Ivica came from Canada. Then we started in Osijek, then Split. Then recently we started in Labin, Rijeka, Slovenia. Then we had a convention in 2005. The guys came from Serbia. We helped Serbia started. Basically, it was like a snowball. And today we have 14 meetings a week in Split. We have meetings in Rijeka. We have meetings in Zagreb, meetings in Osijek. And now that is this online thing going on, we all see each other, and it's like really, my heart is full. Yesterday I was in the Zagreb English-speaking group, the group that greeted me when I came back.
Isn't that amazing? Did you go to any of the internationals? Did you go to the one in San Antonio or Atlanta?
This was the most wonderful experience of my life.
Were you carrying the flag? Were you one of the flag bearers?
I was, 75.
I saw you.
And I came out with a flag of my country, and my heart was just about to explode. And the most wonderful thing was happening behind, right after my flag was China for the first time. Oh my God! It was just like beyond, far and beyond. And I am grateful. There was a lady in the central office and many other wonderful, wonderful people who have made my life so. I'm so aware that the grace of Alcoholics Anonymous in every minute, a presence of God and higher power. I'm back to my religion in a way that I'm God the way I believe.
It sounds to me like this experience with translating the big book and getting meetings started in your native country, in your home country, did an awful lot to keep you sober over the years and engaged with AA. It sounds like a God thing that happened there, where God put this service work in your life. And you know what strikes me, Ksenija, about you is that you are one of the pioneers. When you think about the pioneers of AA in the early part of the 20th century, in 1935 and 1939, throughout the 40s, those were the people who were bringing AA to different cities in the country. So they had to know the big book, they had to be dedicated, they had to be absolutely committed to AA and the program. And it sounds to me that that's what you did in Croatia in the 90s.
I must say one thing, that Croatia at the beginning of 2000, I came back in 1999 from States. for good. You know, that year I was flying from 5 times. I put out of my pocket, I bought 5 tickets, Croatia, Los Angeles, Croatia, Los Angeles, Croatia, Los Angeles, bringing the big book, trying to, see how can I carry the program and everything. And the 5th ticket, I remember at that time I wasn't really very well with the money because I was so insanely in love with AA and the translation. And then I needed some money, and I called a friend of mine who is very, very well off. And I said, listen, I'm carrying the big book in Croatia, and would you please buy me the ticket? I'm not going back to Los Angeles for a while. He bought me a ticket, and I came back, and I had like about $4,000. The first book, they didn't pay me a dime. I didn't want to. They gave to my sister and to the guys who actually she translated in New Croatian and typed with the doctor. They gave some money for that. And the second time for the 12 and 12, they told me, you have to take the money for the translation. It's like a lot of translation of the 12 and 12.
Sure.
And you have to travel to the... I forgot I had to travel. I had travel expenses and everything. It was just so sweet. I would 12-step just about every person in a train. So a year later on, into my AA insane work in Croatia, Terence tells me, Ksenija, AA is not going to feed you. You got to do your job. You got to work.
Right.
I made that year, I created with my crew and in the National Theater a performance called Marlene Dietrich. It exploded. It was performance that when I heard the applause and the standing ovation after that, and I just couldn't, I knew it was God, higher power awarded me for my 12 step.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. When did that start?
And that started in 1999, and so far I have performed in 5 languages that show, in 20 different countries, and I perform in New York, in Los Angeles, and all over the world, South America, all over Europe. So the deal was that I was so overwhelmed with my success, but never, ever in my life, I forgot to be of service, to go to the meetings. And my sponsor said, how come you can be so patient? And I said, I don't understand. My sponsor told me, Ksenija, you have to listen to the boring ones. Maybe I'm one of the boring. You have to do the steps. This is the program of 12 steps. It's not the program, come to the meeting, have a coffee and go home and stay sober. No, this is a program of 12 steps. If you do not change, it was very difficult at a certain point. Again, I wanted to be important. Then I faced another compulsive, obsessive behavior in food department. So I started CA How. I personally do believe that at this point when the war is starting in Europe, I don't know when, how, and what. If I did not have spiritual guidance, 12 steps, and acceptance that whatever comes, if I look back, my 30 years, I have been true to myself. I have been true to God. I have done the best I could for my fellow man. Nothing compares to that.
Congratulations on all of your success in getting the AA program underway in your home country. Now you're living there full time.
Yeah, I live there full time, but I go on. I also go travel a lot in Italy, and I travel really a lot around the world.
Do you go to meetings when you're traveling?
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
I'm sorry, I cannot. I must say that one of the most beautiful meetings I met were in Venezuela. My most memorable meetings and girls that were probably more emotional than I am in Russia, in St. Petersburg.
You know, when I was new in sobriety in the early 90s, I remember at one of the clubhouses I went to, there were a couple of Russian fellows from Russia who had come to the United States specifically to take AA back to Russia and establish some of the first AA meetings in Russia. And I'll never forget, they came in, they were like sponges trying to soak everything up. One of the things I want to ask you about, the stories, I'm curious, so the 164 pages obviously were translated. Did you translate the stories or did you put in different stories?
Okay, I translated big books, 165 pages, and I translated 12 and 12. In 2015, we had a convention in Croatia, and I think it was Dublin, who is now the CEO in the Central Office of Europe. They financed the second edition of Croatian Big Book with including the stories. So now we have the second edition of Big Book with the stories and with everything. So we are very advanced. They asked me many times to speak and send my story to Grapevine. Somehow, I was just so crazy busy. But if I say my name is Ksenija and I brought, like, everybody will know that like my anonymity will be broken in a second.
One of the goals of doing this podcast, and I start interviewing people about their participation in AA, I have to be extraordinarily respectful of anonymity to the point where I will actually cut out the names of people's treatment centers and other things that would identify them to anybody who wanted to look into them. I wanted to ask you about your own personal anonymity and how you deal with that.
If I can have a tattoo AA on my forehead, I would do it. Okay? But there is one thing. I am going to write my biography, and I will write about 12-step program, 12-step programs. I will never, ever deny that the way I recovered. I would not say Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, but I will definitely say my story. I give a shit. I'm sorry to say that. They tried, they put me in a newspaper with that I am the big fighter for the clubs of recovering alcoholic. And then you have to know that when I came to from United States to Croatia, I asked the president of Red Cross, why in the world we do not have AA? And he told me, how can Yugoslavia can have AA? Ksenija, it's based on God, on higher power. Instead of higher power, put family and anonymity. No, don't drink. It's not good for you. And change according to the communist plan, which you cannot rely on higher power and God, but on your family. Your mom, your family. I've never seen in such meetings so much abuse. You will not believe it. Families come and then the husband said, you cheated on me, you were a whore, you this and that, and the children are listening. It's insanity. So that was what I found when I came back. And even today in Zagreb, we had to fight, but my sponsor told me, Ksenija, there is nothing to fight. AA is going to develop on its own. We don't fight. We are in the hospital. When we came to Split, doctor told us, where have you been? It's all big time work. Meetings, steps, sponsor, stay sober, come to the meetings. It's not like, hey, here is the book, you're going to get sober.
I get that. In Russia, in the communist countries that you know of around there, does the Big Book, is there no mention of higher power?
No, it's all the same. But the one thing I heard of Russia, there are wonderful people in Russia. There is a guy who is traveling every week, 18 hours from village to village, carrying the message. They were so dedicated. I met the most wonderful, dedicated people. We have here such a great support from Damien from Slovenia. Slovenians came to give us hand. In Temișvar, there is for 40 years, already more than 40 years, there is AA. You cannot imagine what the pioneers would have. Yes, most of them, many groups try to change the traditions, adjust, not do the steps. But in the long run, you pay, you don't stay sober.
So the basis under which you got sober in the U.S. was the perfect platform from which you could help build Croatian AA.
Yeah. When I was leaving, one of my friends, Claire, sponsees, my sponsor, Claire, she looked at me. Her name is Beverly, and she's fantastic, epitome of 12 steps. She looked at me and she said, "And honey, don't you forget, you are not Bill Wilson." If I'm proud of anything, I never made myself president, important. I know I respect Clancy for all his work. I went to many meetings, and I've never made myself. I'm one of the members. I stayed one of. Even today, I have great sponsors. They are light of my life. I'm grateful to God. I'm grateful to whatever happened to me. But the grace of being in AA, being able to participate in a first edition translation of AA book, carrying both the books, it's priceless.
Yeah, and that's a real godsend to the people in Croatia, to the people in AA, to people like me who are absolutely amazed by the humility, the newfound humble nature that you have by virtue of doing this incredible service work.
When I came to AA, I was everything but humble. I was arrogant, a self-possessed, egotist, insane actress. I never thought of anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody who was not important. But one thing I want to say, my sweetest memory of AA at the very beginning, I'm at the train station going to Osijek, 14 hours ahead of me. I'm translating 12 on 12. And I have my book, and there is right next to me, there is a purple in the face, a red, drunk, last stage alcoholic in a red sweater with some white feathers. He slept in some chicken house. I don't know. He had white feathers, and he has little glasses. And so I walk in my compartment, and, in the car, and I knew he's going to sit next to me. So I said, he's mine. And so right next to me. So I'm not saying, and I'm smiling and writing, translating from it. And he said, "So what are you working on?" I said, "Oh, I'm translating. Just came back from United States. I brought a program, 12 steps. I'm translating right now. I am an alcoholic, and this is the book, How to Help Alcoholics Achieve Sobriety." And he looks at me, he said, "I am alcoholic as well." Oh, what a surprise. I'll never.
That must have been some ride for him and for you.
It was the sweetest. I was flying like a kite, and he said, "Oh, make sure you send me that book when it's done." And then he introduced himself, and almost tears rolled down my eyes. He said, "I'm a doctor from Serbia." It was so sad to see a doctor that was living in a chicken house.
Yeah.
And I translated that book, and he gave me that address, and one of my amends that I'm never going to do because I lost his address. And I just, it'll be unfair not to say that. But
did you ever hear from him again after that?
No, I think he's probably a long time dead. I mean, he was just like, "I am so sorry I lost the address." 7 years later on, Serbia got the AA, and there were some wonderful people. The pioneer countries, we tried to accommodate traditions. But in the course of the time, a lot of people show up, and good 12-steppers, and then you explain. I wasn't that way at the beginning of my sobriety. I wasn't like this 12-step,
you've worked at it over the years. And the beautiful thing about your story, and I'm glad I was able to speak with you like this today, because a lot of times when people tell their story in front of a group of people, they focus on certain parts of their story that are, most entertaining or most meaningful. And then there are lots of parts of their story, especially for someone like you who's been sober 30 years. A lot's happened since you got sober and today. And something like this is really, really big and has helped facilitate a big change in a lot of people's lives who've gotten AA in Croatia. And I feel really honored to have been part of finding out about this and letting other people in the world know about this. There might be somebody in Croatia who listens to this podcast who says, I know that woman. Now, they won't see your picture. They won't know your last name because I keep the last names out, but they will know that you are a person of service to AA and that AA owes you a debt of gratitude. Perhaps that matches your debt of gratitude. That's why at the end of every podcast, I say, this is something that I do to repay AA for that which has been so freely given to me. And I want to thank you so much for doing this today. I love you. You're just a terrific person. And I really enjoy the fact that you and I get a chance to share a meeting together on Saturdays. It's a marvelous time to see you and hear from you. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this, Ksenija. You're terrific.
Thank you very, very much.
Well, my friends, that's a wrap for today's episode of AA Recovery Interviews. Thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed AA Recovery Interviews, will you please tell others how to listen to it? It's another helping hand that we in AA can extend to alcoholics everywhere. If you want to contact me directly with any comments, questions, or suggestions, simply email howard@aarecoveryinterviews.com. By the way, this podcast strictly adheres to AA's 12 traditions and all General Service Office guidelines for safeguarding anonymity online. I pay all production costs. AA Recovery Interviews and my guests do not speak for or represent AA at large. This podcast is simply my way of giving back to AA that which has been so freely given to me. The next episode of AA Recovery Interviews is on the way, so keep coming back. It'll be here soon.